Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of my 2019 updated bookshelf tour. In this part I'm going to cover the remainder of my general collection. I did letters A through K in the previous part and I'm going to do letters L through Z in this part, and my general collection is, well, mathematically speaking, the majority of my book collection, so that's going to constitute a large part of this. So what you're currently looking at is my single largest bookshelf. It is one of 3 large bookshelves in this room, which is my office. And a lot of this is also double shelved. You can kind of see this is double shelved, but this small shelf, which I've rearranged for mass market paperbacks, is also double shelved with like 50 paperbacks probably. Yeah, a lot of Discworld mass market paperbacks are in there. In the opposite corner of my office are these other 2 large bookcases. There are 6 shelves here, but there are also another 2 at the bottom of each of these behind the cupboards. So up at the top of the left one, this is 2 more shelves of my general collection. The bottom bit here is the comics collection, and then over here another bit of the general stuff, and then these 2 shelves are my TBR books, which I will show in a different video. I keep my reference books behind this cupboard. It's pretty small now. I've gotten rid of about half of those books in the past 2 years or so. So back over here now, I'm going to move my papasan out of the way and I will start pulling out books and showing them to you. I had forgotten that my tripod isn't quite tall enough for this topmost shelf because it's about 6 feet tall. So I'm gonna have to pull these books down one by one, but here is a brief look at this topmost shelf. First, we have 6 Wakes by Mur Lafferty. I still love this book. It's a really good, like, murder mystery in a closed room type of science fiction novel, and I believe there will someday be a sequel, or maybe another book in this universe, and I very much want to read it. A book that is ever present in my life, even though I haven't reread it, Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. I feel like I mentioned this in every single video this month. And the other 2 books in the series, Ancillary Sword and Ancillary Mercy. Provenance by Ann Leckie is the other book currently out in the Imperial Roch universe, though it's not actually in the Empire. This book has improved a lot in my memory since I read it. It was good. I think I would enjoy it even more upon rereading it, but I think some people felt let down by it. It's very different from Ancillary Justice. And her latest book, The Raven Tower, I do feel kind of let down by this one. It had some very interesting bits, but also just, it was not as strong or powerful as I expected. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Biting the Sun by Tanith Lee. I think this is a bind-up of 2 novels. I should probably check that. Yeah, it contains Don't Bite the Sun and Drinking Sapphire Wine. I know I read the first book because I had to read it for a literature course in university. I wrote a paper on it saying it was basically describing a post-singularity civilization, which in retrospect, that was a really interesting idea. I should have done more with that. But I don't think I've read the second book, and I've kept it because, I mean, hey, science fiction written by a woman. I should really read more by Tanith Lee. Some more darn good science fiction, Nine Fox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. And the other 2 books in the series, Raven Stratagem and Revenant Gun, and I did love all 3 of these. And also Hexarchate Stories by Yoon-Ha Lee, which is a short story collection set in the same universe as Nine Fox Gambit. This is my really beautiful box set of the Time Quintet by Madeleine L'Engle. I don't remember if I actually showed the individual books in my last bookshelf tour or not. I'm going to show them in this one because I think that the cover art is beautiful. We have A Wrinkle in Time and A Wind in the Door, A Swiftly Tilting Planet and Many Waters, and An Acceptable Time. I reread all of these books around 2014, I believe, and I still really liked them. Intergalactic PS3 by Madeleine L'Engle. This is, I think, an adaptation of a chapter from A Wind in the Door as a standalone short story. I think it was published for a charity or something like that way back in the day. It's not really worth your time if you have read the full novels. It's very repetitious. Like I said, it's kind of an adaptation of a chapter, so I got it because I like L'Engle. Next up are the Austen Family Chronicles by Madeleine L'Engle. The first two are Meet the Austens and The Moon by Night, The Young Unicorns and A Ring of Endless Light, and Troubling a Star. I don't remember if these next three books have a series title or not. I think they follow one of the O'Keefe grandchildren, perhaps. This first one is The Arm of the Starfish, and I want to say that I did a review of this book in the very, very early days of my channel, like maybe in the first couple of weeks that I was making videos, so it may not be up anymore, but it was like my first foray into a serious book review. A House Like a Lotus, which, that's such a good title, and Dragons in the Waters. This is my Spanish edition of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis, El León, la Bruja y el Ropero. And I apologize for my terrible accent. I got this when I was still studying Spanish in university. I have a minor in Spanish, and I think I read the first couple of chapters and then put it aside. I have gotten rid of the actual English editions of the Chronicles of Narnia over the last couple of years because they're so common. I get them from the library, but I kept this because I don't actually have that many books in Spanish anymore. Invisible Planets, an anthology of contemporary Chinese SF in translation, edited and translated by Ken Liu. 1491, New Revelations of the Americas Before Columbus by Charles C. Mann. A Memory Called Empire by Arcadie Martin. Now, for all of my really old, beat-up mass-market copies of the Dragonriders of Pern books. These are my original copies of Dragon Song, Dragon Singer, and Dragon Drums, which is the young adult like sub-series within the Dragonriders of Pern. It's called the Harper Hall Trilogy. I kept this original set because I love, love, love the cover art. They're just fantastic. I will show you the new ones in a second, and they're so bland compared to these. Yeah, so these are the Saga Press mass market editions put out a couple of years ago. Obviously, I bought them and read them because I love this trilogy, but they are so generic fantasy and feature the large dragons rather than the fire lizards, which are the actual focus of this trilogy. Then we have Dragonflight and Dragon Quest, The White Dragon and Nerilka's Story, Moretta, Dragon Lady of Pern, and Dragon's Dawn, The Renegades of Pern and All the Weirs of Pern, The Skies of Pern and the Master Harper of Pern, The Chronicles of Pern, First Fall, and Dragon's Eye. And lastly, The Dolphins of Pern. I've only ever read the original Pern books written by McCaffrey herself. I know it's been continued on by her son and I think also her granddaughter. I do not have any interest in reading those books. Even the original Dragonriders series was diminishing returns by the end. Austral by Paul Macaulay, Luna, New Moon by Ian MacDonald, and the second book, Luna, Wolf Moon. Every Heart a Doorway and In an Absent Dream by Seanan McGuire. These are the first and fourth novellas released in the Wayward Children series. Dream Snake and The Exile Waiting by Vonda N. McIntyre. I really loved Dream Snake, and The Exile Waiting was interesting, though a bit flawed. I would love to get some newer editions, though these kind of have their own appeal, being very old and obviously well read. The Blue Sword and The Hero and the Crown by Robin McKinley, and also Sunshine by McKinley, which may be one of the few vampire novels I truly, truly liked. The City and the City and Embassy Town by China Mieville, Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery, another very old school book. Cold Welcome by Elizabeth Moon. This is the first in a sequel series to the Vada's War series, and I think just as good as the first series. And the sequel, Into the Fire. And these are some of the Vada's War books. I don't think I have them in the right order, but these two are Trading in Danger and Command Decision, Engaging the Enemy and Mark and Reprisal, and Victory Conditions. The Speed of Dark by Elizabeth Moon. This is kind of a contemporary sci-fi novel with an autistic main character. The Gene and Intimate History by Siddhartha Mukherjee. What If? Serious Scientific Answers to Absurd Hypothetical Questions by Randall Munro. The City Not Long After by Pat Murphy. Autonomous by Annalee Newitz. Planetfall by Emma Newman. After Atlas. And the two other Planetfall novels are Before Mars and Atlas Alone. Sabriel by Garth Nix, Lyriel, Abhorsen, Clariel, To Hold the Bridge, which is a short story collection, Newt's Emerald, and Across the Wall, which is another short story collection. The Next Continent by Usui Ogawa, translated by Jim Hubbard, Broken Places and Outer Spaces by Nnedi Okorafor, the Binti Trilogy, Binti, Home, and The Night Masquerade, Akata Warrior, The Book of Phoenix, and Lagoon, Too Like the Lightning by Ada Palmer, the sequel, Seven Surrenders, and the third book, The Will to Battle. These are 3 print collections of the Johnny Wonder webcomic, which I don't even know if this is still ongoing or not. I haven't heard about it in a really long time. Typescript of the Second Origin by Manuel de Pedrolo, translated by Sarah Martin. Here I am doing all of this work and the dog is just sacked out, ignoring me, not even lending any emotional support. And yes, this entire papasan is basically a glorified dog bed now. This rather large book is Amelia Peabody's Egypt, a compendium edited by Elizabeth Peters and Kristen Whitbread. It's kind of a companion to the Amelia Peabody mystery series. And this book without a dust jacket is the Cadfael Companion by Robin Whiteman. And it is basically an encyclopedia of people, places, things that are referenced in the Brother Cadfael mystery series by Ellis Peters. So these are the Amelia Peabody mysteries that I have copies of. So really quickly, we have Crocodile on the Sandbank, The Curse of the Pharaohs, The Mummy Case. The cover art of this, the clothes, the eye makeup, the hair, it's so historically inaccurate. It's just, ugh. Lion in the Valley, The Deeds of the Disturber, The Hippopotamus Pool, The Children of the Storm, and A River in the Sky. I have the entire Brother Cadfael series in these big bind-ups. So the first one contains A Morbid Taste for Bones, One Corpse Too Many, and Monkshood. This is the second one, the third one, the fourth one. Only a billion more to go. I think there are like 20 or something of these books. The 6th omnibus. And this is the 7th one. This is a slightly newer edition. It's a much floppier paperback, and this contains The Holy Thief, Brother Cadfael's Penance, and a rare Benedictine. The Art of Language Invention by David J. Peterson. James Tiptree Jr., The Double Life of Alice B. Sheldon by Julie Phillips. Letters to Tiptree is right next to the Tiptree biography just by pure chance. That's the way it works out alphabetically by author's, editor's last name. So Letters to Tiptree is a collection of like essays and such, and is edited by Alexandra Pierce and Elisa Krasnostein. Treasure at the Heart of the Tanglewood by Meredith Ann Pierce. Now we are getting into my Tamara Pierce collection, and I have some duplicates, and nothing really is in proper order because I was just trying to fit it all on the shelf. So here we have Trickster's Choice and Trickster's Queen. I believe that this follows one of Alana's children, her daughter, and I don't remember anything about these books at all. It's like they never even happened in my memory. We have Alana, The First Adventure, and In the Hand of the Goddess, and The Woman Who Rides Like a Man, and Lioness Rampant, Wild Magic and Wolf Speaker, and Emperor Mage and The Realms of the Gods. Now, I don't know if there is a similar like box set of these trade paperbacks for the, what's it's called? Oh yeah, the Protector of the Small series. I just have this one, the fourth one called Lady Night, because it's the one that I didn't buy in mass market paperback when I was a kid. I still mean to reread this series because if I do still enjoy it, I'll get all of these books in this format. Tempest and Slaughter, which is her most recent novel about New Mare. Battle Magic. And these are the first 3 books in the Protector of the Small series. And this is my other set of the Song of the Lioness Quartet. The last 2 are the ones that I originally bought when I was a kid. The first 2 I bought years and years later. And like, why couldn't I get the same editions? I love these early editions a lot more. And this is my other set of the Immortals Quartet. The first two are signed and personalized because my mom got them for me at a library conference. And I love all the covers of these, especially the cover of Emperor Mage. I've always been in love with the dress that she's wearing. The Will of the Empress, Tortal and Other Lands, a collection of tales, Terrier, the first book in the Becca Cooper series, Bloodhound, book 2, and Mastiff, book 3. And I think that this is the point when I realized that Tamara Pierce's books were going to be massive tomes that really should have been edited down, and I am still a little bit better about that. Moving on from the Tortal books, we go over to Tamara Pierce's other fantasy universe. This is the Winding Circle universe, I believe. This is the first quartet about these characters, and they are Sandry's book, Triss's book, Daja's book, and Briar's book. Very imaginative titles. And the second quartet about those same characters, the Circle Opens series, these are Magic Steps, Street Magic, Cold Fire, and Shatterglass. And Triss has always been my favorite character. Let me show you as quickly as possible all 40-something of the Discworld novels that I own. The Color of Magic, Carpe Jugulum, Equal Rights. Eric, Feet of Clay, The Fifth Elephant. Going Postal, Guards, Interesting Times. Jingo, The Light Fantastic, Lords and Ladies. Masquerade, Men at Arms, and Monstrous Regiment. Monstrous Regiment was my favorite Discworld novel at the time that I read it, but it was later eclipsed by Going Postal. Moving Pictures, Night Watch, Pyramids. Reaper Man, Soul Music, Sorcery. The Truth, Witches Abroad, Weird Sisters. Thief of Time, The Last Continent. Mort and Small Gods. On this next shelf, I also keep a couple of things that are not actually Discworld novels. So we have A Blink of the Screen, collected shorter fiction, and A Slip of the Keyboard, collected nonfiction by Terry Pratchett. Also A Tourist Guide to Lancre, which is a map, and Shaking Hands with Death, which is a speech that Terry Pratchett gave. Hogfather, Unseen Academicals, Thud, Making Money, Raising Steam, Snuff, The Amazing Morris and His Educated Rodents, The We Free Men, the first of the Tiffany Aching books, A Hatful of Sky and I Shall Wear Midnight, Wintersmith and the Shepherd's Crown, the Jean Le Flambeau series by Hanora Nyemi, The Quantum Thief, The Fractal Prince, and The Causal Angel. Hanora Nyemi collected fiction, and Summerland. Everything is Made of Letters by Sophia Ray. The Girl with the Silver Eyes by Willow Davis Roberts. I think this may have been the first book I ever read about telekinesis, and I adored this book for a very long time. The Lucky Strike by Kim Stanley Robinson, which is an outspoken authors collection. Red Mars, which is extremely good, as well as Green Mars and Blue Mars. Green Earth by Kim Stanley Robinson. This is a revised and condensed version of the Science in the Capital trilogy, treated as one novel. New York 2140. Monteverde, Memoirs of an Interstellar Linguist by Lola Robles, translated by Lawrence Schimmel. Gods, Monsters, and the Lucky Peach by Kelly Robson. Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and Quidditch Through the Ages. I honestly don't know why I keep these. I haven't looked at them in years. Obligatory Harry Potter 1, 2, and 3, 4 and 5, and 6 and 7. Women of Futures Past, edited by Christine Catherine Rush. This is an excellent collection of classic science fiction stories by women. We Who Are About To by Joanna Russ. The Sparrow by Mary Doria Russell. If there is any one science fiction novel that I want to be in the SF Masterworks collection, it is The Sparrow. I do not understand why it's not already in that line. Frankenstein in Baghdad by Ahmed Sadawi, translated by Jonathan Wright. Adrift on the Sea of Rains and The Eye with Which the Universe Beholds Itself by Ian Sales. These are the first two novellas in the Apollo Quartet. And the third and fourth novellas are Then Will the Great Ocean Wash Deep Above and All That Outer Space Allows. Monster Portraits by Del Samatar and Sophia Samatar. Samatar's two novels, A Stranger in Alondria and The Winged Histories. And Samatar's story collection, Tender. I also have this tiny little pamphlet from Guillotine Fantastique, which has Meet Me in Iram by Sophia Samatar, and on the other side it has Those Are Pearls by Kat Howard. Head On by John Scalzi. Lockstep by Carl Schroeder. And now we begin on all of the Shakespeare plays. This is a signature Shakespeare edition of Macbeth, and this is the same edition but of Much Ado About Nothing. All of my remaining Shakespeare plays are in the Folger Shakespeare Library editions. I am not going to show every single one of them because there are a lot of them and they're all very, very similar. In the trade paperback size, I have Hamlet, Julius Caesar, King Lear, Macbeth, The Merchant of Venice, A Midsummer Night's Dream, Othello, Richard II, Much Ado About Nothing, Romeo and Juliet, The Taming of the Shrew, and Twelfth Night. And we continue on to the next bookcase for the remainder of the Shakespeare plays, which are all in the mass market sizes. We have Titus Andronicus, The Winter's Tale, Henry IV, Parts 1 and 2, The Merry Wives of Windsor, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1 and 2, Henry VI, Part 3, Richard III, The Comedy of Errors, As You Like It, Measure for Measure, and The Tempest. Young Woman in a Garden by Delia Sherman. This is a truly excellent short story collection. Ambiguity Machines and Other Stories by Vandana Singh, and two of her novellas, Distances and Of Love and Other Monsters. The Core of the Sun by Johanna Sinisalo, translated by Lola Rogers. Of Sorrow and Such by Angela Slater. Life on Mars by Tracy K. Smith. I think this is only one of 3 poetry collections I have. It's not my favorite, but I keep it because I appreciate it more when I reread the poems. The Long List Anthology of Volumes 2 and 3, edited by David Steffen, Anathem by Neil Stevenson, Seven Eves, and The Rise and the Fall of Dio Dio by Neil Stevenson and Nicole Galland. A College of Magics and A Scholar of Magics by Carolyn Stavermer, 2 anthologies edited by Jonathan Strawn, Drowned Worlds and Bridging Infinity. Not So Much Said the Cat by Michael Swanwick, which is a short story collection. These are the first 4 volumes of Fruits Basket. It's a manga series by Natsuki Takaya. I'm only going to show these first 4 because there are 19 more just like them. The Margarets by Sherry S. Tepper, Amatka by Karen Tidbeck, Central Station by Lavi Tidar, The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien in English and in Spanish, and The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King in these trade paperbacks. I do own a single volume illustrated hardcover edition, which is really beautiful, but it is in storage because it's not really a reading copy. I bought these editions specifically because they were floppy paperbacks that were easy to read. And yet, despite that, I have never reread them since I purchased them. Irony. Sisyphean by Dempao Tereshima, translated by Daniel Huddleston. Eats, Shoots, and Leaves by Lynn Truss. The Thief and its sequel, The Queen of Attolia by Megan Whalen Turner. The third book, The King of Attolia. And the 5th book, Thick as Thieves. There is a 4th book. I have read it. I keep forgetting that I have read it and I can never remember the title. It was definitely not my favorite in the series. Uncanny, Disabled People Destroy Science Fiction. For some reason I have this shelved under the title rather than by the editors, Elsa Sionison Henry and Dominic Parisian. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, it's the Disabled People Destroy Science Fiction issue. Radiance by Catherine M. Valente. The Southern Reach Trilogy by Jeff Vandermeer. Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. Digger, The Complete Omnibus by Ursula Vernon. This is a really massive graphic novel and it's a lot of fun. Castle Hangnail, also by Ursula Vernon. Summer in Orcus, this is published under Vernon's T. Kingfisher pen name, and I shelved them all together under her real last name because otherwise I would forget where I put them. And The Twisted Ones, which is still the only horror novel I have willingly read. Behind the Throne by K.B. Wagers, the first book in the Andronin War series. Among Others by Joe Walton. Lifelode. I think this may be one of the least well-known books that Walton has written, and I think it's really worth checking out. It's a very understated fantasy novel. My Real Children. This is the only book by Walton that I could probably say I disliked somewhat. It won a Tiptree Award, or I think it's called the Otherwise Award now. Yeah, it certainly is doing something interesting with gender and, you know, women's lives, but I didn't think it was that great. These are the 3 books in the Small Change series, Farthing, Halfpenny, and Half a Crown. They are very good and they're very scary if you find reading about the rise of fascism to induce anxiety, be careful about reading these. They're a bit tough. This is the Thessaly Trilogy, The Just City, The Philosopher Kings, and Necessity. What makes this book so great? This is a collection of blog posts that Walton wrote for Tor.com about basically books she loves and picking apart why she thinks they work so well. An informal history of the Hugos is very similar to what makes this book so great, except it's a collection of her thoughts on basically the Hugo Awards shortlists for like 50 years, and very interesting if you love the Hugo Awards and like you plan on reading a lot of the winners and the nominees. Maybe a little bit dry reading if you're not as super into it though. I loved it. The Adventure of the Incognita Countess by Cynthia Ward. The Martian by Andy Weir, the first 2 novellas in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells, All Systems Red and Artificial Condition, and Rogue Protocol and Exit Strategy. I Met a Traveler in an Antique Land by Connie Willis. This is a novella and it's in the Subterranean Press edition. Uncharted Territory, also a novella by Connie Willis. The Woodwife by Terry Wendling. I would totally love to see this in the Fantasy Masterworks line. It would be a perfect addition. Yes, I think a lot about what I want to be in the Fantasy and SF Masterworks from Gollancz. I probably invest too much time and effort in that. But this is a superb book. Great mythic fantasy. Some old childhood favorites of mine. This is The Enchanted Forest Chronicles by Patricia C. Reedy, dealing with dragons, searching for dragons, calling on dragons, and talking to dragons. Sorcery and Cecilia, or The Enchanted Chocolate Pot, The Grand Tour, and The Mislaid Magician, or 10 Years After by Patricia C. Reedy and Carolyn Stervermer. I believe that these books actually began with the authors doing a letter game, like writing back and forth to each other, which is probably why I originally read Sorcery and Cecilia in my early teens, because at that time I was really interested in any sort of fiction written through letters, like pen pal writing and stuff. I was really big into that, and I thought these books were fantastic and really funny. The Brother Gardeners, Botany, Empire, and the Birth of an Obsession by Andrea Wolf. A Terrible Beauty is Born by W.B. Yeats. I really love these little black classics from Penguin. It's probably a good thing that they're not stocked in stores here regularly, otherwise I would have bought so many of them. The Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. This is the big omnibus I've had since I was 12 or so, and yeah, I really loved them as a kid. I reread them in the early days of my channel, and they were still good in parts, but I'm also a much more critical reader. The Collected Stories of Roger Zelazny, Volume 1, Threshold. This is the first volume out of a 5 or 6 volume set that collects all of the short fiction by Zelazny. I've read this one and the second volume, and compared to his novels, I think his short fiction is actually better. This Immortal, which is also known under the title of And Call Me Conrad, this is my favorite work by Zelazny. And the very last book for my general collection is Creatures of Light and Darkness by Roger Zelazny. And we're going to end this video with my comics collection, which is a single full shelf. I do have some comics still shelved in my general collection, as you've seen, but most of them are here, especially all of the trade volumes. The lighting is very difficult to get right down here. We're kind of down in a corner, so sorry if it's not the best. Beginning with one of these Sarah's Scribbles collections, Adulthood is a Myth by Sarah Anderson. These are very floppy, so it's hard to show them properly, but these are the first 8 volumes of Girls with Slingshots by Danielle Corsetto. This was a long-running webcomic, and I started reading it regularly during the last 2 or 3 years of its run online, and obviously I was a big fan of it because I invested in all of the physical copies. Unfortunately, I do not have volumes 9 and 10. I did not even know that they existed until a year or 2 after the Kickstarter to fund them, so I completely missed out on completing my collection. I am very upset about that, mainly because this comic has a place in my heart for not only being good and funny, but also It is the reason why I first learned the difference between asexuality and aromanticism, which is one of those few revelatory moments in my life. There's a whole storyline. I think it starts actually in volume 8 with what's-her-face, her, and her girlfriend Erin. And Erin is asexual, and so there was a lot of discussion between Corsetto's notes on each of the comics, as well as the discussions in the comment section about asexuality. And let's just say it was an education. There was a defining moment in understanding myself once and for all. Then I have the first 11 volumes of Giant Days written by John Allison, and most of these, I think all of these but the first 1 or 2, are illustrated by Max Sarin, and it has to be one of the most consistent comics I've been reading in recent years. Just, it's been consistently written well, illustrated well. It's so good. I think there are only going to be 13 volumes, so I will eventually have the completed series, and then I will probably start rereading them because they are just fun. These next 10 are The Sandman by Neil Gaiman. A lot of people have seen these, so I don't think I need to pull them all out. I also have Sandman Endless Nights and The Sandman Overture. This is the deluxe edition, which is illustrated by J.H. Williams III and Dave Stewart. Then I have all 9 volumes of The Wicked and the Divine. These are just the first 4. This is written by Kieran Gillen, and the artwork is by Jamie McKelvey. It has some ups and downs, some inconsistencies, but overall it's a good story, and McKelvey's artwork is so good throughout. I have all 5 volumes of Descender, written by Jeff Lemire, artwork by Dustin Nguyen. The more I think about the series, the more I am less impressed by the story, by the storytelling, I guess, and more impressed with the artwork, which is kind of like this watercolor style. It's really, really beautiful. So I will probably keep the whole series because it is so beautiful, but I'm kind of wondering what the rereadability or like rereading value of this might be. The first 3 volumes of Monstrous, written by Marjorie Liu and illustrated by Sana Takeda. This one is very consistently strong, good writing, a lot of complexity, and I think the artwork is gorgeous. Courtney Crumb and the Night Things by Ted Neffe. These are the first 3 volumes of Lumberjanes, which has been written by a variety of people over the years and also illustrated by a variety of people. I have 11 volumes of this, I think, plus a bonus stories volume, and I really love the early days of this comic, but I've recently decided it's gone downhill. But I will enjoy the volumes that I do own. So Lumberjanes was originally like co-created by Noelle Stevenson, and Nimona is Noelle Stevenson's own graphic novel that she wrote and illustrated, and it's really good. And lastly, for the comics collection, I have the first 3 volumes of Shul Arun, The Girl from the Other Side, which is written and illustrated by Nagabe. This is the most recent manga series that I've gotten into. I may eventually collect all the volumes. I love the artwork, and so far I really enjoy the story. That is it for part 2 of this bookshelf tour. Part 3, I will be moving on to my unread books, which is my TBR shelf, and then my Ursula K. Le Guin and Diana Wynne Jones collections. And if I manage to squeeze it in, maybe a look at my reference books and my cookbooks as well. So thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you or hear from you in the next part. And until then, bye.